I got to kick this thing off. Can I kick it off? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ladies and gentlemen, listen.
Conversate with Us Radio presents the Man Listen Show. We are the blackest radio show on the internet. We bring you our opinion on topics that affect the Black community in an effort to enlighten, enrich, and empower every brother and sister that falls under the sound of our voice. We operate on a no-hating frequency, so be prepared for us to keep it 100% real and 100% Black all the time. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Man Listen Show. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube. Click that bell icon. Give us a thumbs up. Be notified when the next show comes out. Go to our Instagram. Click the link in our bio. You can find out what we got going on next. You can buy merchandise. And just make sure you let everybody know about the blackest radio show on the internet, the Man Listen Show. I'm your host, Marv B. Let's bring the crew in. So, normally when you go to the link in our bio on IG, you can get the merchandise and, you can get my book. You can get Aryka's 2 books. But now we're going to add a 3rd book to the equation. Aryka's got a new book coming out, Unsolicited Marriage Advice. So we're going to be the first interview that she has. I hope we're the first. We better be the first. Talk about this book. So, Aryka, first of all, congrats.
Thank you.
How long has this been? How long has this been in the works?
Like 3 years. I knew I was working on this outline-wise while I was working on the last book. So I knew this one was next.
Funny last, she had one book about killing motherfuckers, and now she talking about her. See how the two are connected.
They go hand in hand.
Right.
But no.
And if this advice doesn't work, refer to the last book.
They say that sometimes when you're a writer, you go through those spells where you just are very, very creative and productive. And then there are other times, I haven't written a book. So there are other times where you kind of you get bogged down and you can't think of what to write next. So it sounds like you were in one of those zones.
Man, it's one of those things where I went through a period of time where I was like, you claim you want to be a writer, you want to, not get famous off your books, but be a well-known author. And so, but you're not putting the effort in to actually produce the work. And so one of the things that I saw somewhere, I'm not sure, was like write a little bit every day or keep, a journal on you so that when you have an idea, you could write it down. And so a lot of times, I just go through my old journals and look at ideas and then see if I can expand on it. So I have tons of ideas, tons of story books, all that kind of stuff. So I'm already working on my 4th book.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
man.
I use that type of thought process, that method. I use, for those who don't know, Aryka just totally messes up the Man Listen chat, because we got a green bubbles because of her, because she's the only person who's a Droid user, and it's awful. But with that being said, I use like the notepad on the iPhone, and I jot thoughts down. I do whatever I got to do because it just makes it easier. It's like a mobile diary. You can't nobody can break into it. Thank God nobody can break into my phone, because that'd be,
oh no, but yeah,
that'd be terrible.
Hopefully nobody can break into
Right.
it.
Right. Hey, so Unsolicited Marriage Advice. What made you choose that title?
I think because when my husband and I got divorced the first time, people just started coming out of nowhere with advice. And I'm just like, don't you think it's a little too late? We already getting divorced. They's like, just, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I was just like, all of this unsolicited advice that I didn't ask for, a lot of it was trash, but some of it was gold. And I was like, this could have been useful a decade ago, back when we first got married, when we were, young still. But after a while, I started thinking about, what you say all the time, take what works and leave the rest. And I was like, well, the parts that, whether or not I took it and used it or not, that I thought were gold, I was like, I should put this, into a resource for other people. And so it's unsolicited because you didn't ask me for advice, especially not marriage advice. And I'm not by any means calling myself a marriage expert. All I'm saying is that I got some great advice maybe too later than I really probably needed it. And it might be, better if I pay it forward and people get it prior to
Yeah.
getting divorced.
Yeah. There's this big debate, and people got pretty fired up about it. I mean, I run this Facebook group, and folks said stay away from the unmarried and unrelationship when it talks about marriage. And people get real upset when you tell them, unless you've been married, I really don't want to hear what you got to say about marriage, because people like to equate relationship, shacking up, things of that nature to being married. But I don't care how long you've been in each other's life. The minute you say I do and you sign that paperwork, things change. And it's hard to explain, but it's sort of like somebody telling me about pledging, right? Like, you can't tell me about being in my fraternity. Lav can, because we're in the same fraternity. And I'm probably, stark violation today with this shirt on, but
I'm good.
I'm on blue and white, but what?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm violating in a major way. But do you think that has merit, that somebody who hasn't been married really doesn't have anything to say about marriage, and does that give more credibility to your book and what you have to bring to the table?
So yes and no. I know that's kind of like a lawyer answer, but I would say depending on what the advice is, right? Because there are people who just know you well. Like, I think that people who really know you can give you advice about maybe how you are moving in a marriage. So they may not be giving you marriage advice. They may really just be giving you advice because they're very in tune to who you are and how you move. And they know, I've seen you do this in 2-3 relationships. Maybe it's time you take a look at, what you're doing. So that advice from anybody who really knows you is going to be quality advice. Now, whether, you apply it or that's just their perspective, that's on you, but it might be really great advice. But I actually have a chapter in the book about getting a mentor couple, and not necessarily somebody who you're trying to mimic, but somebody whose relationship you respect. And then if they've been doing it and getting through the trials and tribulations of life for all of these years, then I think it's worth listening to the advice that they have. Because a lot of times I think that, and one of the reasons why I wrote the book is that I never knew the couples that I actually admire went through some of the things that they went through until they started giving me advice. Once I, started going through my divorce, I was like, well, I thought y'all had like a perfect relationship, and now here you are telling me all these secrets that I didn't know, and how you worked through this, and this great advice that could have been helpful when we were going through these things. Now we over here, and I'm like, a lot of people don't have a couple that they, are like, they have a really good relationship, and they really communicate well, or they really have fun together, and that's something that I strive for in a marriage. And so I would listen to them when they're giving me advice. A lot of people don't have those people. So the fact that I had those resources available to me, it really underlined why I thought writing this book was so important, because I know that I have access to resources that other people don't have access to. And some of the couples gave me the best advice that I think is useful, not even just necessarily in a marriage, but really just kind of dealing with relationships over time. Because a lot of it, really, the book is broken up into you, them, and us. And so it's kind of these things really pertain to you, and these things pertain to them, and these things pertain to us. And so some of the advice they were giving me is like, because they know me and they're able to say, hey, this. Other things were just things I was able to reflect on. Hindsight is 2020. Looking back, the things that I did wrong early in the marriage. Like one of the things I try to talk about early is that a lot of people look forward to getting married to the wedding, but they don't look forward to a marriage. And they have no idea what type of marriage they want, what type of wife or husband they want to be. They just know that they want to get married and they love this person and it's just all going to work out. But that's really unrealistic if you're trying to sustain a relationship and grow a relationship, because you have to really know what your goal is. If you want to be successful at something, you have to have a goal. And if you go into it with no goal and no plan, you know, you basically planning to fail. And so some people can muddle through and make it to the other side miserably or happily or however you want to call it. And some people really have to, you know, either go through therapy and reevaluate what they're doing right or wrong. But I think that just having people who have been through actually being married, not being shacked up, because there's something to be said about I can just pack up and leave and never talk to you again. That is completely different from being married to somebody and you got to get the government involved to get out. You got to stack your coins and get you a lawyer and go talk to a judge and explain to them why you don't think you want to live with this person anymore. So it definitely changes the connection between you when you actually get married and actually are legally bound to these people. And if you don't really know what that feeling is like, it's going to be hard for you to give me advice on being married.
I know it's getting good, but if you want to add right here, hit us up in our DM. So, out of us on the show, I've been married the least amount of time, right? And so, as you, not just in a marriage, but you know, you evolve as a person. And so who you want or what you want at 23 ain't the same as what you want at 33. It's not what you want at 43. So that being said, I'm just throwing this out there. This should be the first book in a series for you. Because, you know, I mean, in all seriousness, no, is there any part of it that you wrote and you went back and said, man, 3 years later, that advice probably isn't applicable or anything like that?
Actually, no. The biggest thing I struggled with was imposter syndrome. I felt like, you know, who am I to be giving out this advice or to be, you know, sharing this information with people?
And who taught you out of that?
my close connections, family, friends, you. And then
y'all know I'm Mr. I told you so, right? So you know,
I know.
I'm gonna say it.
Yes, we talked about this extensively when I was in Dallas, and that was very helpful. And I did actually talk to my sister about it, and she read it and gave me some feedback because I was worried that it was just not coming across the way I wanted it to come across. Like the confidence part in me being able to do it came from our conversation, but making sure it was actually delivering the message that I was trying to deliver. Because I tried to give it from a not an emotional standpoint, if that makes sense. And sometimes when people are reading books, they want to connect to the person. And so I wasn't sure if you would really be able to connect to me because I wanted it to be more academic, straight talk than more like, oh, boo-hoo, woe is me, this is what I went through. So
you wanted it to be the Aryka we know or Aryka the attorney?
Somewhere in between, because so the premise of the book is basically, or the pattern of the book, whatever, is I talk about the advice that I received and talk about it generally, just the importance of the advice. And then I talk about it in application to somewhere where I did not apply this advice in my marriage, in my relationship. So it's like, here's this great advice, take it and do with it what you will. And this is how I went wrong with this advice. So you can also learn more from this real life example or mistake. So it's like less like I'm trying to be like a marriage advice guru or something like that. And more like, I'm like, this is the mistake I made. Learn from this mistake, take from it whatever you can take from it, and then, you know, apply it to your life however you think you can make it fit. So it's a real peek into my personal business, but you know, I don't care.
But you'd be surprised how many of us don't have those mentors like you talked about. And you know, this book might be the only way that they can get advice from someone who's been married for some years, you know, divorced, married again, made mistakes. And the thing that I appreciate about you is that you don't mind being vulnerable and talking about the things that you've done, because we've all made mistakes. We've all, probably could have done some things differently. A lot of folks don't want to share that because they don't want to, show the world their weaknesses, or, where they could have done better with other people. But I'm of the mindset that I want people to learn so they could be better. And if it's my testimony that helps us do that, then, that's a good thing. Because, my parents, they gave a good model for me. But my parents are deceased. I've seen other people who don't have good mentors. I look at Lav's family. They are like the epitome of a strong Black family to me. Like when Lav got married and I saw, his mom, his dad, his uncles, his grandparents, I'm like, damn, they like the Huxtables. Like for real. And that's something that I'm like, when my family, that's the type of family that I want to create for myself. Now that's not all the way possible, right?
Right.
Different personalities, we're in different times. You don't know the whole story. But I think the danger of somebody not having a mentor, because in my previous relationship, I always felt like if she had somebody who could talk to her and say, yo, that's not the way you probably should handle it, things probably would be different. I can't say that they would 100% be better, but they would be different. And I feel as if I had friends and older men who would tell me, hey, but you messing up, right? You wrong. You can't do that. You have to change the way you approach your marriage. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, I feel the same way because my husband, he's very private and, he doesn't have a father figure in his life. And so really, he's just, making his own way, making, his own path with his own guidance for the most part. And so it's sometimes where I felt like, I wish he had somebody he could reach out to and kind of connect with them and vibe with them and, somebody he could trust to talk to. But I mean, life is life.
Yeah. And even people that have those people, to be honest with you, sometimes you don't want to share with your, the struggles with people that because you don't want them to look at your partner in a different light or something like that. So that's another good aspect of it is someone who doesn't necessarily know you, but you're laying it out for them like this, and this. And it can be a form of it can be kind of therapeutic for some people because they don't have somebody that they feel comfortable to go with.
So you given unsolicited marriage advice. You talked about you divorced your husband, right? And
Yes.
then obviously you still calling him your husband, so y'all got remarried. Did you talk about the divorce?
Yes, I did. I didn't necessarily dive into the details of how we got to that point, because I try to use one specific story to highlight each piece of advice. So as opposed to me just, here's my life story, I just use one particular story per piece of advice that I felt like was applicable. So it's referenced in there that we got divorced and we got remarried, but I didn't go into detail.
Divorce is such a traumatic thing. I'm divorced, and the lab talked about I guess you didn't say it in these words, but the shame that comes with being divorced, especially when you grow up with, family. I mean, my people, my mom, my dad, uncles, they didn't get divorced, good, bad, the ugly, they stuck it out. Now, times were different. Maybe if the women in my family had more resources or more options, maybe they might have said like, yo, I'm out, right? But when you are somebody who's getting divorced, I felt like a failure. And it wasn't until I think Lab and one of our homeboys, we was at Gates Barbecue and I broke it to him and my stomach was in knots. And Lab, you didn't know this, but Lab was like, you tried, man, it's all good. And that just took the whole weight off my shoulders, because I thought everybody's gonna be like, well, what'd you do wrong? Well, why can't y'all figure it out? And all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And it just happens, so divorce is rampant now. People are, I don't know the statistics, but it's crazy. So this book is needed, for people.
Definitely.
try to because marriage is a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would want to be married again, but it has to be the right situation, and hopefully when I
Right,
do,
right.
I'll be using the advice that you give in this book.
Yeah. And you know, the book can be, I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna put words in Aryka's mouth, but the book probably can be used to help your marriage or to let you know that, hey, this ain't the right marriage for me.
Yeah. So the last chapter is basically about fighting for yourself, making sure that while you're doing all these things to grow and take care of the relationship, you making sure that you're not suffering underneath the weight of all that work and effort. Because at the end of the day, you got to make sure that you as an individual are 100%, or else you can't even bring what you need to bring to a marriage anyway. So
I like how you talked about, you broke it down, you know, you, them, and then us together. Because honestly, if you're not good individually, I don't really see how the marriage can thrive.
hmm
I don't think you have to be on point 100% of the time, because obviously we go through ups and downs in life. But if you're not able to um, be whole and be responsible for your own well being, then how's the marriage going to flourish?
yeah, I talked about a period that we went through that I really kind of I put the responsibility of my happiness on him. And that was like really stressful on the marriage for a number of reasons. But just going through that time period where it was really like most people have trouble just making themselves happy all day. So you
Mhm.
expect this human to go out, make themselves happy, and then come back and be responsible for you and your happiness too. And it's just unrealistic. I mean, it's hard enough out here, especially, as Black people, it's hard enough out there in the world. And then you come back in here and you have all of this other weight, like you said, the weight of, I think that men more so than women, I don't know. I'm a different type of human, so I don't feel any type of failure because I got divorced once or twice. But I more so feel like like everybody in my side, everybody is like, if y'all get married again, we're not coming. So that's pretty much the feedback I've been getting on that. And I'm like, I don't care. You ain't invited. We didn't invite anybody the second time. But so I just think it's important to make sure that, like you said, we're taking personal responsibility
Mhm.
for the part that we play in our marriage. And that involves our behaviors, our traumas, our triggers, our own happiness, all this other stuff. We just really have to start with personal accountability, because if we don't, then we're not even starting with the right type of foundation. And that's kind of a reoccurring theme that I talk about in the book, is making sure that everything that you do is reinforcing the foundation, because you have to have a strong foundation in order to keep
Mhm.
building. And if you don't maintain the foundation or make sure that you're not doing anything to undermine it, then you're still going to be in trouble.
Yeah. So let's go back. You talked about, you know, this is your third book. You've already started on the fourth. What made you want to be not just attorney Aryka, but author Aryka?
I've always been a writer. Ever since I was young, I was a writer. I don't know if you remember when I was in the Alpha pageant when I was 16 freshman year, and I read that story about gouging people's eyes out with a spoon, and everybody was looking at me like I was a psycho. 8 years.
I'm
I
That
just
pageant
always
had, it was, yeah, it was
that
some.
well, I'm gonna tell you, I don't remember that because that pageant was full of so much more foolishness.
Yeah.
And the fact
it was.
and the fact that you were shout out to those young ladies.
Yeah.
I'm not here to disparage y'all, because y'all committed y'all's time and
Mhm.
money to helping us with that event. But there was so much other stuff that was going on. I forgot. And I think just because you were so young, you and one other contestant, y'all was so young, we were just like, they babies. It's
Yeah.
whatever. you know.
Listen, I read that story and there was not a sound in the room. Did nobody clap? Did nobody breathe? They were just like, did she just? And I was like, you know what? Maybe a horror story wasn't the way to go. But for me, I grew up reading Stephen King, Agatha Christie, Alfred Hitchcock. And so I've always been in love with horror stories. And my mom is like a horror movie buff. And so to me, that was just a huge part of my childhood. And so when Stephen King wrote It, And I was like, this man has traumatized a whole generation of people, if not more, with a clown, with something that's supposed to be beloved. How can I impact the world like that? How can I traumatize a whole generation of people? And that's my goal.
And look at you. You trying to traumatize people by telling the motherfuckers get married.
She ain't tell them. She just, hey, she's
Or stay married. I don't know.
yeah, nah.
Yeah.
Traumatizing.
Yeah. So,
Definitely disclaimer, do not stay in an abusive relationship. That's not what I'm saying.
definitely not. So you said this book was been in the works for what? You said 3 or 4 years now?
Yeah, like 3 years. When did we get divorced? I got divorced in 2016. And that's when people started just giving us all kind of random advice. And I mean like the most random of times, because maybe the public doesn't know, but my husband and I, despite whether we're good or bad, we still show up together, kick it, turn up, and they be like, y'all look like y'all good. We're like, don't worry about what we look like. Just because we're not sitting around miserable and crying, we're not like abusing each other. That doesn't mean that we still want to necessarily, stay in this marriage, or that we don't have our problems. We just keep our problems to ourselves. Because like I say, he's pretty private, even though I'm telling all our business now. But
that's a question I have, because I know a few people, and I wrote a book about fatherhood, and I changed a lot of the names because I didn't want people suing me, because I ain't got it, y'all. And I wanted to protect their privacy somewhat. And I know other people who have books that they have written, and they talk a lot about their trauma growing up, like with their family. And they're torn because they're like, I want to be able to tell my story, but by telling my story, I'm also exposing my family. And some people decide like, well, I'll wait till they all die off before I write my book. Or some people be like, this is my story. This is my perspective, my side. You're more than welcome to write your own story, but this is my story that I want to tell. How did you navigate that?
With a lot of delicacy, actually, because one of the things that I wanted to be very mindful of throughout the book was my own personal accountability. I didn't want it to be me just bashing him throughout the whole book or how he handled things. It's really more of a insightful look into us as kids, how we handle things. And then even as we progress, because you got to think there's a period in this book where we were divorced, where I was writing it, a period where we were getting back together, and a period where we were married. So really, like, our relationship was in 3 different stages throughout the production of this book. So, but I talked to him about it, and I was just like, well, this is how I'm doing it. Like, I'm telling the advice that we both know well because we've heard it a million times. And then I'm telling a specific story about our lives about it. And he was like, you're the writer, write what you want to write. I was like, all right. So, but I was 100% mindful of making sure that I portrayed the right message in the right way.
Yeah, I was gonna ask a question similar to that, but I was gonna a little twist on it, like diabolical tells a woe, you had to do some changing, or people that know you might have an idea of certain people or whatever. But anyhow, hey, did you ever give thought to having a pseudonym? That's what they call it, using a different name to write your books and stuff?
No, because hello, I'm trying to create a legacy. That's what my next book is called, Legacy. Like, I want my legacy to
it's
be
different now too.
reflective of the hard work that I put into this life. So when they write about me, and they're gonna be like Aryka Moore, yada 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 yada. It's not gonna be, oh, she was also known as Willie.
Sapphire. No.
Right. What's my stripper name?
Right.
No, I know I want all the credit for all this hard work, the late nights, the stress, because it's like, dealing with the imposter syndrome, the editing, second guessing yourself, having to put this vulnerable part of you out into the world and then be prepared to get criticism and feedback. And not just from the public, your family, your friends, the people that gave you the advice, and then of course my husband. He's going to have some feedback too if and when he reads it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I know it's getting good, but if you want to listen to previous shows, hit us up at our website, www.manlistenshow.com.
Yeah, you know, I often think about legacy, and you know, we're getting to an age where these years aren't promised to us. And I think about, what are we leaving? And that's why I'm so appreciative of this podcast, because I think about it, when our time comes, right? Our children, our friends, they can always go back to this, and look and see, I can hear Aryka's voice, I can hear Lab's voice, I can hear C's voice, I can hear their personality and everything that goes along with it. So by you doing this, it's such a dope thing. I'm so, always been, super proud of you. And what I like about it is, I always talk about how in the Black community, we are so much stronger when we are together.
mm-hmm.
And the Black family structure is something that white supremacy has been targeting, because if we don't have that Black family structure, then we see all the problems that creates, right? We see,
Mm-hmm.
how fatherlessness, how that affects the community, for our young men and our young women. So by doing this, you are committing a real revolutionary act, because I know you were targeting us. We want everybody to buy the book, right? White, Chinese, Arab, whatever. But the Black community that's going to support you, our country laugh. Don't say nothing. I heard it. As soon as I said it, I knew you was going to laugh. But let's be serious. We want them to support, right? Because we need that type of unity between brothers and sisters. There's so many other podcasts that, stoke division between Black men and women. And here you are trying to do something to help people heal and, continue to love one another. Because like Tank said on his podcast, we said it on Drink Champs, our love is revolutionary. Our love is revolutionary. It's the hate that they want to promote. So I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why I knew I had to be very candid in this, because even I don't know if you guys have tried to get some family history out of some of your grandparents and stuff like that, but they didn't talk about what they went through and what they experienced. And so if you had someone who really kind of gave you some insight into the life that they lived, those lessons, you know what I mean, could really help a lot of us. But because we're so quiet and so reserved about sharing information about our personal lives, traumas, sometimes good or bad, a lot of times, especially now, people get on Instagram and talk about and promote all the good, and then you sitting here at home thinking everything is all good with everybody else. Why is my marriage and my life so bad? And in real life, you got the same situation as everybody else. And I say the same thing with my kids. I tell people, I think that the reason why, and this is just my personal opinion, child suicide started going up is because they've got these fake images of all these happy people, and then their parents are providing this fake image of being happy for the sake of the kids and all this other stuff, and they're like, well, how is everybody else pulling it off and I'm not able to pull it off? So I prefer to be ridiculously candid with my kids, so when they go through stuff, they be like, oh, my mom went through something like this, let me see what she, if I could talk to her about it, or and I've always made it known to them that, hey, if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, you have aunts, uncles, cousins, you have resources. And I would rather you talk to any one of them than just not talk to anybody. And I think that making sure that people have resources, especially our people, resources in marriage, resources in relationships, resources in work situations, raising kids, all of that candidness allows us to build a more authentic community of support for each other. And I think that that's so important, that it's worth being vulnerable and open yourself up to some criticism for, because at the end of the day, I did the stuff. Right. And at 21, 22, I got married like 22, 23. I'd probably do it again. So obviously I'm not the same child I was at 21, 23. So it seems less smart now. But that's that hindsight, right? And so if I can give some nuggets to somebody who's starting out at 21, 22, and even if only one or two things actually resonates with them, then I mean, I feel like I've done my part. Because like one of the when you go to weddings, they say give a piece of advice. One of the pieces of advice that I received, I always share at weddings, and it's speak more kindly to your spouse than to anyone else in the world. And I kind of try to expand on that, because it's like, well, if you guys are one, a lot of times we speak negatively to ourselves all day too. We like, oh, you're an idiot. Why you do that? You always messing up this. And then we speak that same way to our spouse, and we don't even realize that we're just tearing ourselves down all day. And so when you start with something as simple as speaking life over to the person that is supposed to be your partner, your other half of yourself, then you start speaking life over yourself as well. And it just kind of changes your habits, and it changes your mentality. And even something that small could really have a big shift in a relationship where you were so comfortable tearing yourself down, tearing them down, or they're the ones with the negative self-talk or talk to you. And it's just like something so simple could really change the dynamic of a relationship when you realize, I don't want to speak to the person I love like that. I don't want to threaten to kill people anymore. I'm working on that. Baby steps. I'm apologizing when I do it. It's as far as I could go right now, but it's something that I don't want to do. Like, I'm 42 almost. I need to be able to express my anger without expressing it in the same way I would in a horror novel. Now, will I possibly go write about you and kill you off in a story? Probably definitely going to happen. But as far as actually speaking to the person that's your chosen person, the whole world is out to get us out there. In here, it should be support. Even if it's constructive criticism, it should still be housed in love. So,
Yeah, you preaching today.
For real, man.
Really are. You really
Man,
are.
I took a few notes on that, for real.
Listen, if you dropping nuggets like that in this book, folks definitely need to buy it. And what I
For
really
sure.
appreciate is that you're no longer homicidal. You're just, theoretically, figuratively, you're homicidal, just not not in real life.
in here now. I keep it in here and in my
Yeah.
books.
But and I like you're giving advice to people, and you're speaking on like your mistakes and how people can learn from your mistakes. And I always tell my son, a wise man learns from other people's mistakes.
Mm.
But the piece that I really like is that there really isn't a model relationship, because a lot of those people that you think like, dang, they really got it all together.
Right.
Talk to them, and if they honest, they'll
Mhm.
tell you like, man, listen. We ain't talked in a week. I can't stand. I can't stand when she does this. I can't stand when he does this. But we
Yeah.
know how to deal with it to keep
Mhm.
the marriage going. Because I honestly feel like, and let me ask y'all this: those people who say we've been married 20 years and we never had an argument, I'd be like, y'all both some two. Either both of y'all some lying asses, or one of y'all is miserable as all get out. I don't know. What y'all think?
Or they could just be a marriage that don't communicate. So you just let it, you just don't communicate your frustrations.
That's
I
miserable.
think,
No,
I think
For
also
me, it is
marriages go
because
through seasons.
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
So you could just be catching them on a good season. This could be a good episode.
Nah,
Doesn't necessarily mean the
for
whole marriage.
somebody to say, we have never got into a disagreement. We've never argued.
Oh yeah, they lying.
yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure they're lying, but yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's impossible. I argue with myself.
Man, you can't have a relationship more than 2 years with anybody and not have a disagreement
Oh,
argument.
hey,
So
ask the right people. You can't go 2 weeks without arguing with me.
But it's tough out here. So where can they find the book?
Right now on Amazon for a pre-sale as of October 1st, and working on expanding that over the next week or so.
Okay.
I'm lying. 2 weeks when I get back from Carnival.
So
I ain't doing nothing for the next week.
So when people watch this in the future, right?
Mhm.
Go to Amazon, tell them the title of the book, tell them your name.
Unsolicited Marriage Advice by Aryka Moore.
Okay. Make sure y'all go buy it. I'll be buying 5 copies and giving it to, couples that I know. Got to support my sister. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to the next book. I'm looking forward to reading this book because, you know, when we read, you got your book of poems. I have to admit, I bought it, but I'm not, you know, I'm tough and rugged, so I ain't really reading no poems, right? But Diabolical Tales of Woe, you know, I definitely read it, and it was entertaining because I know you. So a lot of times I was reading it in your voice, and I'm looking forward to reading this book, and you know, hearing your voice as
Yeah.
you speak to the audience. So this is gonna be dope.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be dope. So make sure y'all go to Amazon, support our sister, buy 5 copies, give it to young couples. Like we said, you know, I
Or
love
old couples. Sure.
yeah, old couples too. Yeah.
Give it to those couples that say they ain't never had a fight before.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah. So make sure y'all buy the book, support our sister. Make sure y'all support us. Go to our website, www.manlistenshow.com. Listen to old episodes. Go to our IG. We'll have a link to the Amazon link so you can buy Aryka's book. You can buy her other books as well. You can buy my book. You can buy our merchandise. Just continue to support the show. We appreciate y'all. We'll holler at you next time. Peace.
Peace. We miss you, C.
Shout out to C.
Yeah.